Very good. Well, welcome to our second session for this book club that we are holding for a week. And we are reading, just in case, we're reading Be a Plant-Based Woman Warrior by Anne and Jane Esselstyn. And well, before we start, did anyone tried the oatmeal, the lemon oatmeal? Yeah? Okay. Did you like it? Some of you said you were going to make it. You already had cooked the oatmeal and then you were going to add the rest. Did you try that? Okay. Well, if you want to type, it's okay. I don't know if someone is talking, but I am not hearing anything. So I hope that the sound is okay.
How does this sound? Can you
Oh,
hear me?
thank you, Debbie. I can hear you. Okay, I was just a
Yeah,
little
no, I didn't get to it,
paranoid.
but that's one
Paranoid.
one I want to try.
Okay, well, good. Go do try it because it's out of the usual and it's very good. I even though I don't like a lot of sweet in the morning, but I think I'm gonna try that every now and then. I really enjoyed it. So today I want to talk about some specific uh, illnesses here on page 24 of the book. I know that for some of you, this information is something that you've heard many times. We have been talking about this in my YouTube channel, in my 7-day program, and but I don't know. I don't get tired of hearing it or reading it because I always something pops up and something is reminded. So I hope that you don't get bored with hearing this information. But we must be reminded that type 2 diabetes, for the most part, is it should it's something that we shouldn't even be talking about. It's a disease that we are having now because of excess, and it's not so much, as you know, excess sugar is the problem here, is fat. So this is type 2 diabetes, though. Okay, so on page 24, at the very bottom of the page, it says type 2 diabetes is not a malignancy. One can't catch it from someone else. So how does it develop? There are three major players involved. Okay, so this is a this is another way to put it. And so you see, I enjoy hearing in another way. Dr. Neil Barnard has a different way to say the same exact thing. Dr. McDougall has another way. So it's good to hear it in different ways. So it says there are three major players involved in developing this disease. And that is glucose, which is blood sugar. That's number one. Insulin, which, as you all know, is what transports the glucose. Okay, and where does it transport? To millions of muscle cells. And then let's see, so glucose, insulin, and muscle cells. Okay, so those are the three things involved. And there is one scoundrel, okay, dietary fats. Yeah, that's where we want to get to. And most people don't know. They haven't been really told by the doctors that if they stop eating fat and the intramyocellular fat gets out of the cells, that insulin and glucose and everything is going to work as normal. So our stomach breaks food down into glucose. So we are eating whatever it is eating, and it has to be transformed into glucose. And then our insulin molecules load up with glucose and transport it to our muscle cells so that we can move around. Well, I can be moving, talking, uh, cooking, doing things in the yard. Everything we do requires muscle, and those muscles use pretty much one type of fuel, and that is glucose. It works beautifully. It gets tricky only when dietary fat shows up because it messes the whole system up. And uh, and if we can just go to the root of the problem, we can solve it. So in a healthy person's body, part of the insulin molecule perfectly inserts itself in the muscle cell like a charger into a phone or a car into a tight garage. Okay. It is then able to deliver the glucose inside the cell, allowing a person to carry on with energy, attention, what does it say here? Vim and vigor. So this is another way of putting it. Remember how Dr. Neil Barnard, who wrote the brilliant book on, it's called Dr. Neil Barnard's Program for Reversing Diabetes. He tells us that if we could imagine a lock on a door, and like it says here, in a healthy person's body, part of the insulin molecule perfectly inserts itself into the muscle cell to deliver, the insulin, not the insulin, the glucose. But if we jam that door and the key cannot get in, the insulin cannot attach there, then the glucose won't be delivered, and it's going to be sent back to the blood, and it's going to be high blood sugar. And right now, most of the treatment is how we can get that out of the bloodstream, instead of wondering how did it get there and how do we go to the source of this problem. But and then he keeps going, and he says, but when there is too much dietary fat in one's system, a fatty buildup called intramyocellular lipid blocks this perfect inserts, so the insulin molecule cannot dock on and deliver glucose to the muscle cell. The muscle cells have become insulin resistant. When you hear that term, which is it's all over the place. Oh, I'm insulin resistant, or I don't, someone else is insulin, is saying that the key cannot, that attached to the cell to deliver the energy, to deliver the fuel. And why? Because it's jammed, it's full of fat inside the cell. Remember, the intramyocellular lipid it's not the same as the fat that can be seen, let's say, on the stomach, for example. It's fat that is inside the cell. Someone can actually be slim and skinny and have diabetes type 2, and it's because there is fat inside the cells. And so, the glucose remains in the blood, which is known as high blood sugar. But luckily, this malfunction is akin to autumn leaves blocking your gutter or hair clogging the shower drain. It can be reversed. We must tell people that this is an easy problem to solve. It can be reversed. Adopting a whole food, plant-based lifestyle will clear off the fatty buildup on the muscle cells and allow the insulin to drop off the glucose once again. I don't know if you've been to places like True North or McDougall programs or many others. I have been lucky to be able to be there many times and continue whenever I can. And you see this is an everyday fact. People with type 2 diabetes arrive at True North or arrive at one of these other programs or even comes to my 7-day online program. And what happens? Well, even the next day, the blood sugar starts to normalize. It's amazing the power of the body to heal itself. So they recommend to someone who's interested in the type 2 diabetes to read Dr. Neil Barnard's program for recovering diabetes. And guess what? That was one of the books that I included and featured in the online book club. So when you go to my YouTube channel, there is a playlist there. At the top, you can see different titles, and one of them says playlist, and one of them is called Online Book Club. And I have featured many, many, many books. So if you're interested in watching that, it's there with some cooking demos included. So then on page 25, right here, it says there is only one dietary source of cholesterol. Another thing that people sometimes don't know, this is an easy fact to learn. There's only one source of cholesterol, and that is in animal products. And also another easy fact to learn is that we make all the cholesterol we need. Thank goodness the body was designed to make it, whatever the need is. Some of us may need a little more than others, but the body makes it all by itself. We do not need to bring in more. So it says when you eat a whole food, plant-based diet, your meals are high in fiber and low in fat. Okay, does that sound familiar? That's what we're always talking about. Fiber, and more fiber with water and low in fat. You don't need to eat animal products. So you don't need extra cholesterol. The endothelial cells, which are those very delicate cells that are covering the inside of the arteries, free from the punishing blow of grease, meat, cheese, and dairy, remain healthy and free of lifestyle-related vascular issues. I like that. Lifestyle-related vascular issues. Even adopting a plant-based diet later in life, even when our endothelial cells have been pretty much destroyed, even later in life, and you can hear Dr. Esselstyn talk about this, it can be reversed, okay? The impact of the more standard American diet can be reversed. And of course, I cannot recommend high enough the book that Dr. Esselstyn wrote, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. Then I think it's really interesting to read some of the testimonials here on page 26 and 27. Patricia, okay. I'm just going to let you read the testimonials. If you ever want to later on make a comment, please feel free to do that. We'll just go a couple of pages and then we will open up for any questions or comments. So there is a little really small, just one paragraph on cancer on page 28. And eating to save your heart and prevent diabetes also decreases your cancer risk. Isn't it wonderful how plants work? You don't need a plant like you need a pill for this and a pill for that. And, plants in general will take care of our health as a whole, not only our heart or our blood sugar, but also cancer. A plant-based diet helps the natural process of, apoptosis, or cell death. Let's just use the easier term. So a plant-based diet helps the natural process of cell death. And we also know that doing a little bit of fasting helps a lot in recycle and using part of the cell the cells that have been damaged to create new ones. So the killing of unhealthy cells like cancer cells. Okay, so a plant-based diet basically helps to stop that process of killing cells. And while the consumption of animal products has been shown to increase the promotion of cancer, a plant-based diet has been shown to fight off cancer cells. In the next section, we touch on the protective effect of plants against breast cancer specifically, okay? And then it says, for more on cancer and plant-based eating, we suggest How Not to Die by Michael Greger, okay? And also another major pillar, the China study by T. Colin Campbell. So let's see here. Would any of you have any questions so far about the diabetes or the cancer? What we've questions or comments that you'd like to mention? Okay, all right. Let's move on then. Supporting hormonal and sexual health. Okay, I'm still on page 28, and it says in the second paragraph, our bodies, while talking about, they're women, our bodies produce all the estrogen we need. And it says cholesterol plus fat equals estrogen. If we eat animal-based foods, we consume extra estrogen. It's like we were saying before, we also consume extra cholesterol. And increasing our estrogen levels causes trouble, obviously. Anytime that there is an imbalance, you're going to get trouble. According to Dr. Christy Funk, breast cancer doctor and author of Breasts, the Owner's Manual, the quantity of estrogen matters because 80% of breast cancer is fed by estrogen. 80%. Wow. Okay, on page 29, I think this page is really important. In addition, excess estrogen can also cause menstrual issues and fibroids to grow in the uterus. And I cannot tell you how often I hear this issue of fibroids in the uterus. Fibroids are like stalactites in a cave. They hang on to the uterine lining and grow larger. They can cause severe bleeding, even if they're small, which can lead to anemia. Sadly, some physicians address symptoms of fibrosis by performing a hysterectomy, always addressing symptoms. This is such a recurring story. Sadly, some physicians address the symptom. Okay, that means removing a woman's uterus. When just removing dairy only from her diet, may be all that is needed. Again, another wonderful book by Dr. Neil Barnard, who is an expert on hormones. It's called Your Body in Balance. Maybe that's going to be another book we could read together. The 1-2 punch of it is animal products are not only high in estrogen, but also low in fiber. So how worse can it get? Okay, so what happens when there's not enough fiber, when whatever we're eating stays in the body for longer? This means that as meat and dairy slowly make their way through our intestines. Why slowly? Because there's no fiber. We absorb more and more estrogen for as long as it takes to pass through our system. On the other hand, phytoestrogens, which is plant-based estrogens, are protective against tumors of the breast. Here's why. We have alpha and beta receptors in the breast. Our own estrogen stimulates the alpha receptors, which signal cancer cells to grow. Yet, when phytoestrogens land on beta receptors of the breast, they act like umbrellas blocking estrogen's access to the alpha receptors. In other words, our breasts love plants and plants love our breasts. Well, I mean, I can't say that, but I mean, there's I don't want to develop breasts. I've seen men with real breasts, and again, they're eating a lot of these estrogens and other hormones that come in the food. Anyways, and here we are at the end of page 29. Numerous indigenous cultures do not have a word for menopause because historically and culturally, it doesn't exist. These cultures primarily consume a diet based on plants. The path to menopause tends to be gentle on a plant-based diet. Natural estrogen and hormonal adjustments are mild or even imperceptible compared to what women who eat hormonal meat and dairy products experience. This is on page 31, okay? Then it goes on to talk a little bit more about sex, and so I'm going to skip that because I get embarrassed, okay? And you all can read that. But I mean, no, what I mean is anytime we're talking, we all know that our sexual organs need blood flow. And so on page 39 here, more or less 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the middle of the 5th paragraph, it says, this natural, healthy response occurs when the endothelial layer within the arteries release nitric oxide and dilates, increasing blood flow. Basically, if our arteries are healthy, there's going to be no problem in blood flow. And what does a plant-based diet increase? Blood flow. Lubrication is also made of plasma from the blood flow, an adequate amount of nitric oxide from healthy endothelial cells, and estrogen. Okay, so another thing that just was interesting, different phrases that stick in my mind here is at the very bottom of page 31. It says, chicken appears to serve as a reservoir for antibiotic-resistant E. coli. I couldn't. I see chicken and I see death. I mean, chicken and fish. I mean, any meat, but those two to me are just reservoirs of antibiotic and all sorts of just heavy metals and things like that. And so it's correlated with urinary tract infections, UTIs. Less chicken equals fewer UTIs, okay? Fewer bladder infections and fewer kidney issues. And I'm on page 32, and the second paragraph says, bowels love fiber. Oh, yes, they do. I know. I think you all have seen when we're doing our 7-day program how bowels, if they were not regular, they become regular. They just love fiber. Intact fiber, not fiber that has been broken into a million pieces in a blender. Fiber in its original form with water. Plants are filled with fiber. Consuming plant-based fiber makes our bowels move with ease, so constipation is not an issue. The lack of constipation helps prevent hemorrhoids and diverticulitis as well. Okay, and then we have another testimonial by Joyce and Saray and Monica, and that's the end of chapter 2. But before we end chapter 2, let's just cover here on page 32 this little bit of boosting immunity. Okay, on page 32. A massive amount of our immune system lives in the essential bacteria and microbes in our gut and our bowels, which is called our microbiome. This is still pretty new research, and it's advancing more and more. It's so fascinating, really incredible what goes on there. There is a great deal of talk lately about taking probiotics for gut health. But the best bang for your buck is to eat high fiber foods. You can save money and you can enjoy food and you'll get the same result. And fiber is found only in plants. When our microbiome consumes fiber, the process creates a powerful byproduct called short-chain fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer. I love the word anti-inflammatory. I dislike the word inflammation. As you all know, I think that's the scariest word. It opens up the body to all sorts of attacks and illnesses. So fiber, let's remember that. To ensure the proliferation of these healthy microbes and bacteria in our microbiome, we must eat fiber. We must eat fiber. Okay, so talking about fiber, let's cook something. But before that, any questions, any comments?
I have a question. We may have covered this, and I may know this is late at night. Sometimes my mind isn't working as good this late. But when we cook the food, I'm trying to think if there's any vegetable that's high in fiber. Then if we steam it or boil it, does that reduce the fiber? Is the fiber better when it's raw?
It's not necessarily better when it's raw. What we want is the fiber to not be pulverized, to not be put in a high-speed blender. I think that the best possible way to do this is to have a good balance between raw and cooked. That is the ideal. And so I don't have that. I do eat raw vegetables. I was eating radishes this morning and cucumber, and and then I ate a salad. But I a little more towards the cooked. Okay, but I try to have a balance.
Thank you.
And yeah, okay. So anybody else? Any questions? Any comments?
Well, I know Chef AJ recommends a pound of raw and a pound of cooked vegetables. And there was somebody else. Oh, I was going to share. I made one of those wraps, those hand wraps, and didn't do a very good job wrapping, but it was all full of raw vegetables.
Oh, okay. Basically like a salad in rolled up. Okay. Yeah. It's people sometimes get scared when they hear a pound of vegetables. When you put it in a scale, it's sometimes it's interesting to see that it's not much food. It's not a whole lot. 3 pounds of vegetables or 2 pounds of vegetables, uh, uh, lightly baked um, for morning for veggies in the morning. It really isn't much. I have a video in my YouTube channel showing how little it is. So okay. Well, chapter 4 talks about breakfasts, and there are some breakfasts that would work well with me, and others that don't call my attention. So this is where it gets interesting because all of us can choose different things. I tend to always look for food where I can get the most fiber and water possible. And so yesterday I showed you how I made the lemon oatmeal. And let's see, on page 59, let me see here. On page 59, you have Anne's Warrior Oats. And this is one of I have a recipe, a very simple recipe, pretty much like this one, very close, that we do when we do our 7-day program. I love this breakfast. So I'm not going to make it because I have it in a video on my YouTube channel. But since I like savory breakfasts, I really love it. And so if you haven't tried this, give it a try. You have this, and then there is a variation that says Polly's Powered Up Warrior Oats, and then Jane's Risotto Warrior Oats. They're very good. She's using steel cut oats. Many times I use oat groats, and because it feels and tastes so creamy, like risotto, that I really like that. Okay, but I want to show you one also definitely a favorite, and because I'm kind of an expert on cooking polenta, and so I want to show you how I made on page, what page number is this? 71, the grits and greens, or polenta and greens. Just a couple of things before we look at it. I've never cooked polenta with milk, so here the recipe calls for 2 cups of water or vegetable broth and 2 cups of unsweetened non-dairy milk. Nothing wrong with using the non-dairy milk. What happens is that, of course, it's going to be milk from either cashews or from almonds or any other. And even if it's oat milk, there's going to be some extra fat there, which, if it's not going to make a huge difference in the flavor and the consistency, I just don't use it. So you will see how I just use water. I didn't use vegetable broth because a lot of the vegetable broths that are sold have sodium, and I don't have time. I just didn't make my own, but it came out so creamy with just water. But there is a little secret on that. You have got to have the water boiling, and you have to gradually put the polenta or the grits there and stir. It is a little time consuming because for about 15 or 20 minutes you have to stand at the the stove and just constantly, the more you stir it, the creamier it's going to get. And besides the 4 cups of water or whatever you use, you've got to have another 4 to 6 to 8 cups of boiling water nearby, because you will, as you stir it, you'll see how it becomes thicker and thicker, and you've got to add a little bit at a time. The wonderful thing about the polenta is that it keeps absorbing water, and it keeps absorbing water, and so we're drinking that water later on. So you'll see how it comes out. When you buy the dry polenta, just follow the directions on the back. But really, what says here is pretty much correct. 1.5 cups of yellow grits or polenta. Since I knew I was going to like this ahead of time, I doubled the recipe. So I put 3 cups. And so everything is double when you see it. Well, let's stop there so I don't make you hungry. It really was delicious, and the greens you could lightly saute if you wanted to saute them with onions and garlic or something else. I just followed as much the directions as possible here in the book, so I just lightly steamed it. Basically, it was like 3 minutes, and that was about it. Okay, so definitely a go. I really like that. And the thing is that if you have any leftovers, it's a great lunch with something else that you could have as a side, a salad or something else, or beans or whatever, and could be dinner. So this is a really good meal idea, because it's, number one, it's simple. Number two, it can be eaten at any time of the day. It was very creamy. You can buy polenta in some stores in the bulk section, and or you could just buy it in packages. In many supermarkets, it's sold nowadays, and if not, of course, online you can find it. Any questions, comments? You can reheat the polenta. I have what I do is the next day because the next day, when you put it in the refrigerator, you will notice that it's a block. Okay, like the ones that you see at the store, that is a long like sausage kind of thing, and it's a block. It's solid. So all you have to do is you have to have hot water. Put some hot water in a pan, put the polenta there, gently stir it on low heat, add a little bit of water. It's you're just reviving it with more liquid. The polenta needs to absorb a little more liquid. So it becomes just as creamy as you saw there. Okay. So tomorrow we will, yes.
Question. When we did our detox thing, I think you talked about a recipe that you have where you take the polenta and put either tomatoes or something tomato on it and bake it. Is it fresh tomatoes or canned tomatoes? What did you put?
Yes. When you make polenta like this, you definitely need to make more than I made. Mm-hmm. Well, it depends. So what you do is you get a glass pan, and you spread a thin layer of tomato sauce. And I'm going to be making the tomato sauce later on that is in this book. like spaghetti sauce. You're just a thin layer, and you start layering it. So you put a layer of the cooked polenta, I don't know, maybe half an inch or so, and then you put another layer of the sauce, the tomato sauce, that I like to add a good amount of mushrooms, but you could use other things in it. I like for it to have a lot of mushrooms and red peppers and bell peppers and green and yellow and be colorful. Then I put another layer of polenta. Then sometimes I put a layer of sauteed greens, and I just layer it until it gets to the top. And then at the very top, I put a little bit more of the sauce. At that point, if you want to sprinkle some nutritional yeast or some other spices, and you put that in the oven. I don't like to cover, because one of the delicious things is when the top of the polenta gets crunchy. And okay, so and you bake it at 375. I mean, everything that you put there is cooked. The oven takes what the oven does is it takes water away. So it's just making it more solid. And so probably about 30 minutes or so, or until you see that it's kind of golden brown on top, and you take it out. So that it won't fall apart when you take it out. Let it sit for another 20 minutes or so, and then you can scoop it out and serve it with other greens or with salad or with whatever. It really is a wonderful meal. You can, honestly, I'm going to look it up. I never have had leftover polenta. I mean, I have, but like this baked polenta, but it does last 3 or 4 days in the refrigerator, and it never lasts any longer than that. So I had never had to freeze it, but today you can easily put in on Google, can I freeze cooked polenta, and it'll tell you. I honestly don't know. I don't see why not, but I'm not sure.
Thank you for repeating that recipe. I know you've told it to us before, but I somehow lost
Yeah,
it.
it's just layers, and you could get creative. And of course, the way that I ate it when I was a child, there was 1 or 2 layers of cheese, and yeah. And
Well,
today we could make some plant-based cheese with potatoes or something, and do it that way. I've never have
Well, you
done it.
speak of having some Italian in your family. I'm Italian part, and we never had polenta. I never had it before, so I can't wait to try it. I have it in my pantry, ready to cook tomorrow. So
Oh,
thank you.
yeah. Polenta is so versatile. You can, like, I've had it at True North. You can also cook it with apples and bananas and cherries and stuff. So it can be your oatmeal in the morning. It can. Then once it gets hard, you can cut it in blocks and rounds, and you can make little pizzas and put stuff on it, and then bake it in the oven. You can do so many things. And one of the pizza doughs that I made a few weeks ago, it had polenta. It was a polenta crust as well. Yeah.
I watched. Good. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, well, we will be starting tomorrow the next chapter 2, and I will try something that I haven't tried in a long time. I don't know why. It's been at least a year since I have made any kind of muffins, and those look really good. And those are on page 61, blueberry summer corn muffins. So if you want to give it a try, that can be dangerous for me. So I'm just gonna try it because I think that that would be good to take on a trip when I don't have access to as many good things that I have in my house. So that could be a good thing if I'm traveling internationally and I need something, or if I need something that is good and colorful to take to a party or something, or a get together. But if I make these and I don't freeze them right away, I'm afraid I would eat most of them by the end of the day. But I still want to try it. Okay, so all right, very good. Well, maybe someday I will do a whole class on polenta, like you say. That would be fun. I'll see you tomorrow, and have a good rest of the day. Okay.
Goodbye.